Okay, here's a video tutorial taking you through the process of cutting up your scan puppet and connecting it up in Adobe Animate and animating it and using the camera tool to kind of frame some kind of simple action with your puppet into a more dramatic or dramatized narrative. We're starting off in Photoshop. I've scanned in my document with the Epson scanners in class. It's resulted in a document that is upside down. So I need to first flip the entire image. If you don't know Photoshop, I'm going as easy as possible. We're going to go to image rotation. I'll just do 180 here. Now I'm just going to go into the lasso tool here and select things narrowly, and then cut them and paste them, and they'll automatically go into new layers, which are visible here in the layers panel. So what I want to separate out is anything that can move independently. I'm going to get the body, the leg, the arm, the head, and the hat. The more specifically I cut things out, if I wanted to be really more meticulous with this, I could cut out the upper arm and the lower arm and hand as separate. And then I could actually, those things would be jointed together, and I could move them kind of independently of one another to give more nuance to my puppet's gestures. But for this, I'll just start off very simple. I'll start off by cutting out the body, and I'm gonna have a little bit of white around my body. So let's just do that. Now I can cut and paste. And there it is. And you can see that there's layer 1 and background, and I can rename as I go, or I can always rename them in Adobe Animate. Now when I want to move this around, if I want to move him back into place, I can click on the select tool. To select him, I was using the lasso tool, which operates the same way as it does in Animate. So move that into place. Now if I want to select the leg now, I'm going to have to click on the leg, on the background layer that contains that image. If I start to select the leg, but from as it was, my body layer selected, and it wouldn't have selected the leg part of the image. So let's click on body, or sorry, background, and now I'll select the body. I'm using my Wacom pen to do this. I showed some of you guys a way to more quickly erase the surrounding white area of the background. I guess I should show you how to do that here. We'll just do this. Okay, now I'm gonna cut and then paste. Click on my selection tool and put him back there. And now I'm going to go back to the background. I'm gonna lasso in the head and neck. Cut, paste, head, and this was leg, right? Oops, I have to rename leg. And now back to the background, get the arm. I can't resist, so I'm gonna do an upper arm and a lower arm. And if you wanted to, ideally you want some overlap between these two things so that you don't have an empty space when you move them around. And if I wanted to do that, actually, let's do that. I'm going to select a little bit more than half of the arm. Oh, I've left too much white space. So I'm going to subtract from my selection. And then I'm going to copy. If I want to, I'm going to copy and paste this time. See, I've retained, instead of cutting, I've retained my underlying image. So now when I select the lower arm, I can overlap that elbow joint. So now I'm going to copy and paste. Copy, paste. So now I have my upper arm and my lower arm. I'm going to put my lower arm on top. Oops. I'm going to go do arm, lower arm. And I'm actually going to do the hand separately now that I've started this madness. I'll keep going with it. And I'm just making one arm, which I can duplicate. I'm not going to worry about the position of the thumb being reversed. Copy, paste. And now this will be the hand. Okay. I have those things cut out, all that stuff, and now I just need to cut up my hat. I do not have the patience here. I'm going to subtract from my selection. Okay. And now cut, this I don't care about, cut and paste. I've snipped off some of my hat, but that's okay. Okay, so now this background image has all been cut out. I'll just leave it. It's going to come along with me, but I don't need it. So now I'm just going to save. I can save this as a PSD. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And now, and I save it, just so you know, I just saved it as the native file type, Photoshop format. It's going to save all these layers separately for me. And the great thing about working in Adobe, all Adobe software, is they sort of understand what the other programs are doing. So I'm going to do a new document, and I'm going to go for full HD, and then import to stage. And I'm going to go to the desktop, get my Puppet number 3. I've already done this like many times over. When I open that, it knows it's a Photoshop file with multiple layers, so I have them all listed out here. If in doubt, just include them all, but I know I don't need to leave in my background layer. I'm just going to erase that anyway. Convert to layers. What else do we need to think about? Nothing else. Place objects in original position. We can just say import. And you'll see that they're all laid out here in layers. The names for my layers have been retained. I never named my hat, so let's go in and name the hat now. Let me just do this. Let's get everybody sized a little differently. So I'm selecting everyone, going into free transform tool, holding shift to keep things in proportion. I'll size them to about that size. Right off the bat, I should just save Puppet 3. Now, I want to put things in the right order, at least in the right relationship to one another. Now my arm, lower arm, and hand. What I can do actually, maybe this will help. I can select these 3, put them in a folder, and call it arm. Isn't that nice? So I can still select them separately, but I can I highlight them together? Oh, that didn't, sorry, I thought that would automatically put them in the folder. It looks like I have to do that by hand. No pun intended. Okay, now if I click on this, there we go. If I close it, it'll select all of them. So I can just, let's see, does that work? Yep. So now I can select all of them together. That's handy. Okay, so I'm going to actually move them in front of the body. And I can still select them separately or together. I think that arm, I want him to be a knuckle dragger, but not quite that much. So I'm going to resize these. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna copy this whole group for back arm. Duplicate layers. Back arm. Oh, fine. So for the back arm, if I tried to drag him now, I would touch the front arm. I'm gonna lock everything except for my back arm. And now I'm gonna move the anchor point just so I can see this arm and see the right rotation. I'm gonna have to do this again once I turn them into motion tweens. So I'm just gonna, let me just get things in the right place. I also wanna create a new leg, a back leg. Let's get the head on top of everybody else. Now, where's my leg? Let's get another leg. Leg, copy, leg, underscore back. And I want to be able to move him around. Let's put him there. Make him maybe a little shorter. Yeah. There he is. So now I have, oh, that arm should be behind the leg. Of course. There we go. He's kind of stacked properly. So now we can make him exist on the stage for a certain amount of time, maybe 4 seconds. Let's insert frames. Does that? Yeah, that works for everything inside the folder. I don't use folders much. I should use them more. So sometimes I don't know how I should expect them to behave. So let's select everything and turn everybody into a classic tween. Let's see if that works for everyone. Everyone's a classic tween now, great. Oh, should I set dependencies first? Wait, what happened? What happened to him? Where's my back? Oh, I didn't select my back leg. No problem. There's now my back arm is in the right relationship. Okay. Before I start adding keyframes, I realized I went a little bit out of order. I want to actually set my parenting dependencies by clicking on the show parenting view. So I want most things to be parented to my body. The body is going to set the course for most of the overall movements. Let's zoom in a little bit more. I'm not going to have to select these things, so I don't know why I'm worried about that. But the body's going to be the chief. So we're going to drag those children towards their body. So let's, and then there's going to be multiple levels of dependency. Like for the arms, because I made them made up of multiple components, we're going to parent this upper arm to the body, but then we're going to parent the lower arm to the upper arm, the hand to the lower arm, so that when this lower arm moves, the hand moves, but the upper arm doesn't move by default. When the upper arm moves, the lower arm and the hand move. So that's just sort of the way that you can structure things. When the head moves, the hat should move too, right? So here's the body. Let's get the leg. The legs are easy. The legs are just one piece. Leg and leg back. So we're going to get those structured. So now when this moves, the legs move. And we'll just do, I wonder what happens. What happens if I do the full, this thing? Will that work? No. I'll have to actually go in there and get the arm. And also the arm here, the back arm. So now the lower arm is going to be parented to the upper arm, and the hand to the lower arm. And for this arm as well, lower arm to upper arm, hand to lower arm. So now we have this nice situation where this moves like that, this moves like that, etc., etc. So now the head is going to also be parented to the body. This is nothing, I think. I can get rid of that. And everything comes with the body. Oh, didn't parent the hat yet. The hat should be parented to the head. There we go. Now with the body, everything moves. Now that we have our classic tween, but before we start moving things, this is if we start rotating this guy, it's gonna rotate wrong. So we have to, starting in frame 1 before adding any other keyframes, I just like to move things by way of selecting. I'm gonna change the position of my anchor point and to be hinged where the shoulder joint is, and this lower arm should hinge at the elbow joint, and this hand should hinge at the wrist. Same thing for these guys. I might have to select him. That's the arm, okay. Arm's gonna hinge at the shoulder, lower arm's gonna hinge at the elbow. I'm just kind of guessing, I can't quite see it. And then hand at the wrist. Legs at the hip joint. Head at the neck. You know, I might have to move things down a little bit. And when you see in that rotation, things are going to be a little wonky, so I might just kind of move him down. And then this doesn't really matter, but I can do that. Okay, so save. And now you want to just add, we don't have to do a full walk cycle. If you want to, go for it. But, you know, maybe you want to just have him do something simple. Just have him like, just kind of rotate his arm. You know, be saying hi to somebody, and at the same time we can have him kind of, I don't know, like, if you can't quite grab the arm to create a keyframe, you can always insert keyframe like that. So maybe I want him to kind of swing his arm back as he's doing that. Just add some other motions and try him out. It doesn't have to be, hey doggy. Maybe he sees a little doggy on the ground. And maybe at this point, we could have his head. Where's his head now? There's his head. His head can begin tilting down. I just like doing that. I'm not too precise. And you can have his hat sort of tilt up at this point. Go back down. And then maybe he'll later on get surprised because the dog barks at him. I'm just creating like a very simple fictional narrative. Let's give everybody a keyframe here, and then I'll just, okay, I don't want you all selected, guys. Oh, better save, something weird is happening. There we go. And now I'm just gonna have him jerk upright. Let's have the body kind of rotate upright. The dog's gonna kind of bark at him. should have done a keyframe before he moved. That's what I meant to do. Oh well. So his head's gonna jolt up like that, and then at this point, I think his hat's gonna move down to kind of flop over his head a little bit. I also want his other hand to come up at this point. Change this arm. I want this arm's motion to be a little more sudden. Maybe the body leans back even a little further. And then eventually kind of settle back down again. I'm not very happy with that. Clear those out. I want to kind of hold those for a little while, so let's keyframe everything. Okay, now I'll hold that for a little while. Huh? And then I'll let everything settle down here. Now let's convert everything to keyframe here. Okay, so now I have some kind of reaction. I'll have to draw some dog and a background too. But ultimately, I have two scenes. He's walking up. He's saying hi. Then what? Don't bark at me. Okay. And the final thing I want to do is actually give myself a couple of nice shots to add kind of drama and accentuate the meaningful components and moving this around to frame it. Saying hi dog. Maybe I could even add a tween here, so when he's looking down, at this point I could convert to a keyframe and convert this to a classic tween, and I can have it pan down a little bit, planning for there to be a dog here. And then maybe about here, he'll bark, woof, and I'll convert a keyframe. I'm gonna get rid of remove the classic tween here. I don't want it to do a gradual movement. I want it to cut to whatever happens here. Maybe even more of a close-up. So, hi dog. So we have a little cut of the reaction in focus. I'll draw my dog and do that outside of the tutorial. So that's basically it. I don't know if you can find your own interpretation of that very easy, but just using the camera tool and the coordination of the multiple anatomical components with familial or like parenting dependencies properly coordinated to just give the overall suggestion of a moment from a story or something. It can really be whatever you want. This is a way of beginning to think about narrative and how to accentuate or stage the narrative moments. So good job if you made your way through this long and plodding tutorial.